I actually want to talk to just everyday people. And it's a giant, massive funnel, but the concept of believing that everyone is an inventor. And so I'm putting these posits, these questions that I think every human asks themselves, that someone that wouldn't consider themselves as an inventor, to help them realize, my goodness, I could be. And that's the first track I dropped. The title is I'm Not an Inventor. I'm not an inventor. Yeah, you are. Everyone is. It's a matter of whether it's the right time or the right idea.
I currently work for RiseUp Media. So we're a digital marketing agency. We specialize in digital marketing for law firms and attorneys. JD, you're one of our clients. Fantastic to work with. And well, we have so many amazing clients. We're really fortunate. But yeah, RiseUp, such a phenomenal company. I've been with them since the beginning of this year in February, have really been blown away at just how rapidly they're growing. They actually hit the Incorporated 5,000 list the last 3 years in a row for fastest growing companies. And I'll say, just from my own personal experience, just like how quick and nimble they are to, adjust to changing landscapes. Like you and I talk all the time about the influence of AI, people searching now, getting questions answered through ChatGPT, but also Google itself, how it's integrating through AI overviews and now AI mode. I've been really impressed with how well RiseUp has been adapting to these things and really how quickly we've been moving on it all. So overall, my time in digital marketing in the legal space has been about 6 years now. Collectively, my time in digital marketing has been going on 13 years, started back in 2013.
What are the best AI tools? What are the best, call it SEO, marketing levers to pull these days? For some of us out there that are not just law firm, we're a law firm, but people with new companies that are trying to get out and share the word about their product, their service. What do you tell people?
What I'll say is it's not a single platform, and even for like any individual function, that there is a bit of variance in that, Grok is really great as a writer. Claude, I think, is an even better writer. ChatGPT is phenomenal for research purposes, although if you want to ensure things are the most factually accurate, Perplexity is really my go-to in terms of that. But now, if you're looking to do a very specific task, right? If you're looking to tackle something, you want to make sure that you're getting a very precise output. What you actually need to do is you need to build what's called a chain. And so it's not just going to be like a single AI platform in every case. In some cases, you might be able to use it, but even with a single platform, you're going to want to actually have multiple steps involved in the chain, right? And so you kind of break down the work in the way that you would typically do it. And then through the chain, you have the different steps called nodes, where you essentially go step by step. And you can even have different like specific steps for QA, right? You can have like one AI kind of check the work of another AI as an example. So that's a really powerful way that you can do that. There's different platforms out there that you can use to start exploring building these types of chains. Make is a really popular one. N8N is one that I personally love. They also have some other kind of more service oriented platforms out there where it's similar to Make or N8N, but it would be a company that, then they have people who can help provide support and guide you through the process, things like that. And I'll say in general, it's not like off the mark. It's just not as precise as you need it to be for what you're looking to accomplish. And probably like a great analogy I can use for that is JD, the same reason why I'm sure you wouldn't recommend someone, go and do like, pursue their legal work, any type of like patenting or, give another practice area, right? If they were pursuing a legal case, why you can't do that 100% with ChatGPT or another AI platform is the same reason why, really for any industry, including digital marketing, you want to have an expert still guiding you along the process. And so for some companies, that might just mean, bringing someone in-house to do that for them. You don't necessarily have to work with an agency, although I'm a bit biased when it comes to the legal industry in that, like I said, RiseUp, I've just been blown away because, whether it's a large company, which I've worked with, or, small, individual contributors, like I really think RiseUp just has like the perfect ecosystem for helping guide clients in this AI driven world.
How do you recommend other law firms to start showing up? How do they get to the top of some of these AI? How do they become an answer?
So, one thing that I actually want to preface with that, for any law firm, you should definitely be paying attention to is the fact that there has been a pretty drastic shift in search behavior since especially AI overviews has been introduced, because not everyone's necessarily going to ChatGPT or using Google AI mode yet. However, Google AI overviews is a part of the regular search results, right? And so it's good to know how that's been impacting things. And one major shift that we've seen is, there's a lot of like topics related to the more transactional types of searches you're going after, where traditionally it was a regular strategy where, you do blog posts on those topics so you can drive traffic to your website through those blog posts. That helps to build up authority for your website, because if you have a lot of traffic coming in with all types of searches, all topics related to your core topic, then it shows that, people are engaging clearly, they're finding value in your content. However, with AI overviews, oftentimes now it's not about getting the traffic into your blog posts, but just showing up as a citation, because more often than not, the AI overviews are doing, well, what they're intended to, which is providing those immediate answers to people directly in Google, right? And so it's no longer for blog posts necessarily the main KPI as far as traffic coming in, but as I said, just ensuring that you're being cited. And for one, that's a measurement of brand awareness, right? So every time you show up, that's another opportunity for people to become aware of your brand. Beyond that, just think about it from Google's business model perspective, right? Google would be shooting itself in the foot if it did not have some type of incentive for websites to still be creating this blog content, because otherwise, what does it have to reference in order to generate its AI overviews? And so that's where the citations continues to be, or I should say, another reason why the citations are a very important KPI nowadays, because that shows that Google is regarding your website as authoritative still. If it's choosing to cite you in its AI overviews, there's a higher likelihood that it's also going to recommend you then when it comes to a more transactional, or we call high intent search, like
Right.
Who do I hire for this particular service?
Okay, that's really interesting, because I mean, like, who reads those citations? I don't, but maybe you're right. You just nailed it. I think is if my question is, what is a patent? That's not necessarily. I'm not interested in hiring someone, but it's more like, what does a patent cost, or who a patent attorney in Baltimore? Okay, now you're actually more intentional, and then I'm going to want to click on something to hire someone, and Google's not going to represent me. Google's not going to be my attorney. And so maybe that's when those citations really matter, is that's probably who they're going to serve up in terms of you're going to click. And I'm seeing those show up even before the sponsored.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Google's going to make that call. And obviously, those who don't know, sponsored means paid ads. We're not currently doing, just be full disclosure, we're not doing paid ads at the moment. And I'm just wondering if we're going to be able to compete with that on purely organic. Can you actually compete with some of those eyeballs on a transactional search?
To expand upon, the value of still showing up as that citation, it lends itself to a key aspect of why we used to want to generate traffic to those blog posts. It's essentially the same mechanism. We're just seeing it play out a little differently. We used to want to drive traffic to those blog posts because by covering different aspects of a topic, I should say, subtopics of your main topic, like patent attorney, and then, some of the examples that you gave, we were driving traffic to build up authority. Like I said, if people are engaging with the content, then, Google would consider you more authoritative. That's a part of what we call EAT signals: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So the acronym EEAT for EAT signals. Well, now showing up as a citation, that is essentially the same value as what we used to see for heavy traffic, right? So, you used to have to show up as the result, and then people would, come in as traffic. That's boosting your authority. Now to Google, it's just regularly showing up as that citation. If you see that, you're being regarded as authoritative, and you do want to cover all those subtopics still, because going in depth, that covers the second E of the EAT signals, expertise. It shows that you have a broad range of expertise when it comes to the topic, and that you're covering all those individual subtopics. And so, Google is more than happy to include you as a citation, and eventually the end goal, recommend you as the attorney to go with, because they can see essentially your stuff. If you cover that many different aspects of a topic, then Google is knows it's more likely that a user is going to have a positive experience with your services if they do recommend you.
Ryan, would you please interview me for the next 10 to 15 minutes?
You're
gonna do this? You're loving this? Okay, good. So these are some of the songs I've done. I assume you've got a list of these, Ryan.
Yes, I do. I actually first wanted to start with some kind of, just high level questions that I put together here, because I'd really like to just, gain more of a sense of how, you initially have, like what inspired you to get into doing this. Because, in working with you, I'll tell you, it's not every client that is producing this kind of stuff. And it's so fun. These ideas that you bring to the table, in particular with this music venture. And quick note I wanted to say in relation to digital marketing, we talked about this earlier. Doing something like this, very unique for your branding, it is great for your EAT signals, because it's a differentiator that other law firms, they can't reverse engineer. It's so bold, it's so you. And I'm really excited to dive into this. So the first question that I had about your general inspiration is, well, what first inspired you to start writing songs about the world of inventing and intellectual property?
It was my uncle Paul gave me a call out of the blue. Don't talk to him very often. He's like, JD, you've got to check this song out. I can't believe I produced it. Been working with Caleb, who's my nephew. And Uncle Paul is a theologian, big Christian guy, evangelical. And so he had been creating these gospel verses and put them to this music using Suno AI. I looked, I was like, oh my goodness, my Uncle Paul is creating this. It sounded really cool. It's got scripture in there and it's awesome. But I was like, goodness, how else could I use this? And thought about my business and thought, I have a lot of content. I do a lot of videos. You guys have seen my YouTube channels. I do a lot of short, little 2-3 minute segments on my daily video. And I thought, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Let me see what this thing can do. Just on a whim, tried Suno AI using ChatGPT, found some lyrics that would work, massaged them a little bit, tweaked it here and there. And it spit out some incredible stuff. Truly, truly powerful. And I like upbeat music, big beats, EDM. I like, beats are dropping. I want to make sure that if I'm in a car, would I listen to this type of music? Would I get into it? The whole concept was just fun at first. That's really how it started. Didn't really think, oh, this is a strategy. I'm going to go land more clients this way. So that's really how it started. It's just fun. I started developing. I was like, oh my gosh, this actually sounds good. And it's got some of the words I really believe in too.
How do your experiences then as a patent attorney influence some of those stories and messages that you have in your music?
Well, I think having done, content development, doing things like this live show, doing, longer form talks where it's just talking head and regurgitating the law, or doing these shorts, I've found that people resonate with clear messaging, really, really clear. Here's how you can take action. Here's how you can learn. This is the one nugget we're going to focus on. And it just seems like the messaging is better when it's really crystallized, and nothing turns your mind on like music. And so I thought, gosh, what if I could put in one nugget, one gold nugget in the form of music? So each song is basically what came out of a 3-minute video on a specific topic. And, so anyway, kind of bringing it full circle, when clients are educated, when they're hungry for knowledge, that's when I know we've got a great client. They're actually going to be better clients because they've learned something. They want to know, what's my attorney doing? They're not just saying, oh, he's my patent guy and sort of keeping at arm's length. They have a lot on the line. Almost all of our clients at Bold, this is their big shot. They have everything on the line. This is the cornerstone of what might become their whole business, their whole livelihood.
Yep.
And so working that closely with an individual inventor, you gain insight as to how much it means to them. And so that's part of what I love about practicing law in this field, is because we get to help them in a very positive way. A lot of lawyers, and my brother involved, end up helping people when they're in trouble or when there's a problem. Matt and I here at Bold, I mean, we get to help people do something fun. It's such a thrilling part of the law. And so why not get the word out through some music?
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And JD, I could just say, like, from my perspective too, it's true. Like when a client knows more about the work that you're doing, it's just the experience. It's more engaging. It's something that you can get excited about together in that regard. And I'll say that that's what it's like working with you, because I know that you, in addition to patent law, you're very well versed in digital marketing, and I've mentioned before, you're always bringing great ideas to the table. So I could definitely see how that translates in your area of work and your clients as well. So as far as the songwriting, would you see that as an extension of your work with Inventors, or like it sounds like maybe a bit of that, or how much of that and how much of a creative outlet would you say?
No, I mean, this came from a recent, call it a shift in how I've been doing my content. So forever, I've been doing what I'll call informational, basically assuming that whoever's listening is already interested in filing a patent. And I'm just giving them tons of info, so much so they could even do it themselves. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm shifting it now. This is part of the shift in, I actually want to talk to just everyday people. And it's a giant, massive funnel, but the concept of believing that everyone is an inventor. And so I'm putting these posits, these questions that I think every human asks themselves, that someone that wouldn't consider themselves as an inventor, to help them realize, my goodness, I could be. And that's the first track I dropped. The title is I'm Not an Inventor. I'm not an inventor. Yeah, you are. Everyone is. It's a matter of whether it's the right time or the right idea. That's what this music is about. It's inspiring. So it's really approaching the widest audience possible, of inspiring anyone, everyone and anyone to think, gosh, I could be an inventor. Yep. Why not share my knowledge? Why not share my idea? I just released another one, which is titled My Idea is Not Big Enough.
Could you think of like a favorite lyric from one of your songs? Just like any lyric, just to give a taste that way.
Oh yeah. There's a really good one. I'm going to pull it from I'm Not an Inventor. From What If I Fail, which is so good. I think this is like a life lesson thing. It's human nature to not want to look like a fool, right? But this verse 2 it says, fear's just a wall you've built too high, a shadow that fades when you try. It's just your conception, right? And it's like a lot of things. Fear is all in your head. It's all your perceptions. It's so often what holds you back. Yep. So just taking action, it just disappears, right? So just take that step, be bold.
I saw the mic drop from Matt. I couldn't put it in better.
I've seen some incredible drafts come through the assistance of AI. I've also seen a lot of junk written by AI too. So these tools are powerful for good or for worse. So used correctly, technology can save a lot of money. For example, just to touch really quickly on that, an inventor that comes to us with a well-drafted provisional patent application, you're going to potentially save up to $5,000 in legal fees, right? If you've got a draft that's as good as what we would do, not saying everybody can do that, but we have done it. You give full credit for a fully drafted provisional with spec and drawing. So yeah, patents are expensive, and in some cases overly so.